what is that one thing that kind of changed everything for me? It's like the relationships that I have because, for example, when I partner and I do things in certain monuments, they don't do very many events, and they're quite complex, but I think that they trust that we're going to respect the 54 pages of rules, and everything has to be fireproof, and we have to have a technical coordinator checking everything, and we have to give a dossier to some files to the government. Anyway, there's a very long list of things that we need to do, but they will trust that we will do it and that we want to come back. And so again, it's a relationship.
Hey everybody, this is Eddie Babbage, founder, CEO of Timeline Genius, your host here of the Wedding Industry Insider Podcast, back with another great interview. So excited for this one. I'm here with Alejandra Poupel. She is the founder of Alejandra Poupel Events, started roughly 9 years ago. She does luxury weddings in Italy and France and throughout Europe. Alejandra, I am so excited to have you here on our show.
Same here, same here. I listen to your show very often, so it's really nice to actually be here as a speaker. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and I can't even remember originally when we connected, Alejandra, but I do remember it made just such a positive impression. You're so just classy, sophisticated, knowledgeable about the industry. We're so proud to have you as a Timeline Genius, member of our Timeline Genius community. And I just want to tell people here what we're going to get into today. First of all, this is very unique. It's not something that even though I've done over 100 episodes, been doing this podcast for years, you are uniquely suited to give people a perspective on planning weddings and events abroad, in Europe specifically, collaborating with people in Europe specifically. And I also, in very typical fashion, am going to try to deconstruct in the limited time that we have your success and this luxury brand that you've built. But before we get into all of that, will you give people just a little bit more information about your background and how you got to be where you currently are in our beautiful industry?
Wonderful. So basically, I was born in Nicaragua, so I'm Nicaraguan, so hence Alejandra. I was raised in Miami, like all the other Latin Americans, and I fell in love with a Frenchman. So I have been living in France for many, many years. It's going to be almost 30 years very soon. So I've been living in France quite a while. And so the reason that I got into this crazy business, because honestly, it is a bit of a crazy business, let's all admit it, is that basically I worked in Christie's, the art auction home, for about a few years. And then I kind of took a break from working when I raised my two girls, which are now 21 and 22. But when they were applying, they were sitting in the living room and they were applying for, universities and coming to the States. Basically, I was, kind of helicopter mom and, very present. And my husband said to me, honey, now that the girls are going to be leaving, I think it's time for you to start a business. You have way too much energy. You're going to drive me crazy. You're going to be depressed. So it's time to do something. Here's your account. Here's your office. What do you want to do? It was basically that, literally. And my husband is absolutely brilliant. And so I thank my lucky stars for having him every day, because he was a visionary and he was right that when my girls left, I think I would have been pretty much destroyed if I didn't have, kind of my own, garden, my own thing going on that was keeping me really busy. So that's kind of how I got into event planning.
And what is it that, because every time I talk to you, I can feel the energy, feel the passion. What is it that fuels that ongoing passion for you to keep putting forth your best effort to do these beautiful events that you're doing?
I think it's, first of all, I would say it's the people. I mean, of course it is. It's like when, I'm lucky enough to be at a stage where we can, I would say not choose our clients, but we can like interview the clients. We can see if they're a right fit for us. And I think that that's a really big part of, going on a journey with the right people. And I say that in the sense of the client, and I say that in the sense of the creative partners. And I mean, family. Let's not even call them creative partners anymore. They become like family.
Right.
Because when you do a project and everyone is excited and everyone is trying to surpass themselves, and it's hard to be creative all the time. And that's what we need to be. We need to be creative constantly. So I guess I'm very lucky in the sense that I do live in Europe, and we are very lucky to be surrounded, I live in Paris, so we're very surrounded to be by art everywhere. So, I'll go to a gallery. I was just in an exposition last week, of pop art. And I was like, wow, what if, there was this whole exposition on these huge lips of Stephen Weisselman. And I was like, wow, that's such a cool thing, kind of like, okay, rock and roll for the after party, these big lips. I mean, the ideas come from everywhere. Last week was Fashion Week in Paris. It was Couture Fashion Week, and Dior did the most beautiful pop up, and it was basically monochromatic. So all the jewelry had all the blue, everything, all the blue jewelry had a huge room with only blue. And then all the red jewelry had a room with only red. And I was just like, wow, what if we did monochromatic rooms? So
Right.
anyway, the ideas come from everywhere. So I think what keeps me, rolling on in this crazy, thing that we do is definitely the creativity and the people and just going out of your comfort zone. There's a book that I just absolutely love, and it's just really something very special because it just keeps saying that if you're only growing when you're out of your comfort zone,
Oh,
and it's called "The Obstacle Is the Way," and I really recommend it.
okay.
And it comes back to me often. Sometimes we're like, oh, this is not, this is not what and you know what? I'm like, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be because that means I'm growing, and that means that this is a challenge. And so who cares if I fail? What's the worst thing that can happen, right? I have my family, I have my health. Who cares, right?
I love that idea. I'm gonna check out that book, and I love your energy, Alejandra. I always have this thought like that. We've only connected a couple times, and like you're in Paris, you're now talking in New York City. Like, I mean,
I
it's
know we're
just
like
so.
right next to each other. Yes,
I
yes.
know. The you really hit on something there, I'm obviously going to get into the topics that I mentioned at the top of the interview here, planning abroad, but I'm not going to let that go without kind of piggybacking on this notion of getting uncomfortable. There's an author that was pretty popular a few years back. Her name is Jen Sincero, and she has this "You're a Badass" brand. She wrote a book called "You're a Badass at Making Money." I would recommend folks read that. Um, and one thing she says is that building wealth, and I think that can be kind of taken in conjunction with like building a successful business. She's like, when you really think about the key ingredients for business success, hard work is not the only thing, right? Like you can work hard and be digging a ditch all day and and like that's not going to necessarily, and there's obviously no disrespect to any line of work, but just making the point, just because you're working hard and it's not intelligence. She said the thing as she reflects on her career is getting to points where you're uncomfortable, getting outside of your comfort zone. And I feel like that's just such a powerful point because we shy away from that. But that's where all the growth is by definition, right?
And I love what you just said, but the truth is, it comes down to confidence. Because when I started out, I was like a housewife for a long time, and I was like, oh, can I do this? Oh my goodness. And basically it was a very good, very dear friend of my sister's, Diana. And I love her, and I get teary-eyed every time I talk to her because I had organized, I was organizing many parties myself, like on a private level, and she had come to many of my parties. And when I told her, no, now I want to really do something in events because I'm doing a lot of charities, doing a lot of charity work, and I'm basically doing event planning for free, and I'm raising, it's doing well, basically. I was getting a lot of compliments on it, and so she took her chance on me, and she organized her 50th birthday in Paris. It was not dead. And her and her husband came to me at the end, and they told me, Alejandra, I have to tell you, we've worked with some of the biggest planners in the world, and you knocked him out of the park. And
Wow.
those words of confidence, were meant so much because it's like, I don't think you ever feel like you can do it. And then when somebody believes in you, I mean, of course, I always have my husband there telling me you can do it, but, and that's super important. You need to have someone to just, keep reminding you, you can do it, you can do it. And if somebody doesn't remind you, then you remind yourself, that's it. Because it's about the confidence, and you just got to jump and leap. And what, because you have to think, what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, it doesn't work out, so what? Like, it's not like we're brain surgery or somebody's going to die or anything. You just have to be, it's about the confidence. And I feel that was a really very important, like at the beginning, but it's still very important today because now it's like, you don't want to mess it up, and you want to make sure you stay at the top, and this and that. It's the same. It's the confidence that you really need to work on.
What to unpack that a little bit more for me, Alejandro? Like, what role has confidence played for you over the course of your career? And not to ask a, sorry for asking a two-part question here, but what role has it played? And how do you maintain that confidence? And, because sometimes, you're not necessarily getting that affirmation. I mean, it's great when we do get those like affirming confidence boosts from friends or colleagues or circumstances, but sometimes the
Yeah.
outer world is beating you down and it'll beat the confidence out of you. How have you maintained your confidence and how has it benefited you and impacted your career?
I guess in general, I'm a very positive person. So maybe I have, I only hear the good things, and then, the bad things, I'm like, well, no one's perfect, and we do as a team every single time we have an event, we all sit down and we, talk to each other on the raw, and we say, okay, what could we have done better? And there's the worst thing is that, even after so many years and after working maybe at the same venue, and you say, God, how did I not see that? And it's really frustrating. But I think introspecting and just saying, this is what we didn't do well, but it's okay. We're going to do it really well the next time. I think the only thing that would really upset me would be like to do the same mistake on and on and on. Like you can make it once and maybe
Right.
even twice, but if you do it more than twice, then then it's just like you're not introspecting, and then there's a problem. So I would say we're very introspective. We're very humble because we're only human, and I think that there are some things that happen, but the guests don't see it. I mean, we know it, and it bothers us because we know it could have been a little bit more perfect. It's a 95%, it could have been at 100, or some things. But I think your question is a really good one, and I'm even trying to think like, how do I keep my confidence? I mean, I think it's being surrounded by the right people. And when I say the right people, again, it's it's your family and friends, of course, it's your close circle, but it's also your creative partners, because we're all here to lift each other up. Hey, that didn't work out, that was a total flop, but you know what? Look, we're gonna do it like this next time. We're gonna do it like that next time. I think it's really, really, really important who you surround yourself with. They don't have to be the best, but they have to be the best people.
Yeah.
And I've always, that's really served me well as my team. Because again, even your team, if you have a team that keeps saying, "Oh no, we can't do that. Oh no, that's oof, that's like, oh my God, but we've never been to that island, and there's nothing on that island, and how are we gonna," even that's what I'm saying. Like you have to surround yourself by the right people, because if your team tells you, "Hey, let's go for it. That's amazing. Let's do it. Okay, it's gonna be a hell of a job. We're not gonna sleep for the next 3 weeks, but let's do it." That counts. So I think it's your inner voice, but it's also the people that surround you a lot.
I
So be
love
careful
that, Alejandra.
around you.
I'm going to come back to some of these topics. I'm certainly going to come back to this notion of team and again, kind of unpacking your success. But I want to kind of change gears just for a moment and talk about wedding planning in Europe. And
Mm,
again, this is something that the vast majority of the people that I've had on this podcast, everybody that I've had is amazing in their own way, shape, or form, and unique. And what's one thing that's really beautiful and unique about you is your international expertise. And I know I literally was just at a great conference that Irene Tyndale, the Coming conference down in Atlanta. I was just down there, talked to a wonderful planner, and she's starting to do weddings. She has one coming up, I think, in Madrid. So
mm,
I know that this is something that planners that are rooted here in America are thinking about or doing to some degree. So, what would you say to kind of start the conversation here that would be helpful to wedding planners in America that are starting to think about doing destination weddings in Europe?
mm. Okay. So let's say, I mean, first of all, I really believe that if you want to be doing something, if it's something that you want to be doing, first of all, number one, it really differentiates you maybe from other people, because again, it's very difficult to differentiate yourself from so many wonderful and talented people. So that could be a very nice differentiator. Say, I do the United States nationwide, and then I also do globally, or I do, Europe. I think that also gives you a completely different perspective, because when you do events in Europe, as you know, the venues are very different. It's a lot of monuments. They have a lot of character. Obviously, they're maybe smaller, maybe bigger, but they are very different in styles than they are here, or anywhere in the world. So I think that would definitely grow your perspective. So if you're thinking about it, what and I would say to think about it because destination is exploding. I mean, it is absolutely insane. The amount of American clients who are doing events in Europe is incredible. I mean, they're really like our number one market. In my case, my number one market is this, American, Saudi, Chinese, is pretty much my biggest clients, and Americans are, they're I think they're seeking more experiences, and so when you take someone for 3 days to a hotel and you're all together and you take the transportation together and you're doing activities like going to a beautiful museum or visiting a museum together and having a wine tasting, you bond, and the connections that are made is people talk about it for years to come. And isn't that what we want from our parties? I think they go by too fast when you do it locally and it's just 5 hours and it's over. You're like, no, my goodness, it's already over and it took me a year to plan.
Wow.
So I think these trips, these experiences are really growing. So what I would say is, number one, if you want to do more destination, what you need to do is you need to show that on your social media. So in your social media, people are going to judge you on what you're showing them. So if you show them only, I don't know, if let's say you're in Tennessee, if you're only showing them things of Tennessee, well, then it'll be Tennessee weddings that they're going to call you for. But if you show them, and it could be just by doing a venue visit in Europe, it could be by, finding wonderful, calling the venues, getting wonderful HD photos and putting them in there and say, oh, this is a wonderful place that could you see yourself here? I mean, you don't have to necessarily have done an event to project yourself as someone who does events somewhere. So I would say, first of all, do it in your social media. Second of all, I would say what I have done personally is if I haven't worked in a place, I will always get a partner, a local partner. First of all, because they have the insider access. And if I want to give the same quality um, event experience and service as I do, for example, in my home base in Paris, somewhere else, then I need to have that insider access. So what I do is, I always either consult with someone and they help me with the venues, and then I have them check my all of my estimates to make sure that they're fair. Because I can tell you that they don't give you the same prices when you're the planner from Tennessee than if you're the local planner from Italy. I can just or from anywhere, Italy or Montenegro, or it counts. It counts. So I'll always get either a consultant or I'll even partner with someone, and I learn a lot from them. They're usually very happy and they learn a lot from me. We have maybe different styles. We just have to have maybe the same value system, and the same quality of service that we give to clients. That's what I'm looking for anyway when I find a partner. What else would I be looking for? Not necessarily someone just like me, because opposites attract. I mean, I don't know how many of your husbands or wives are completely different to you, but that happens. And I think it's very enriching, but just someone with the same value system and someone who has no ego. Because if you have way too much ego, then it just doesn't work out. And respectful, a lot of good respect and communication. So I would say find a partner. I would also say, you know, next travel. When you go, for example, to Europe, why not go visit the venues? Why not go visit the people? That'll open your eyes. And I would already have a portfolio. Because let's say someone, you're starting to throw it out there. Somebody comes to you and says, oh, I don't know where to do it. What do you think? I said, well, how about Europe? If you have the portfolio and it's ready to go, this is the venues. You make them dream. You make them go crazy over it. And the venues are pretty knock dead your socks off. Then maybe then, but if you don't put it out there and you don't have it ready, then it's kind of hard to just, take the leap.
And do I need to be in any particular market? Do I need to be in like New York City or something to hang my shingle out and start doing destination weddings? Or do I need to does it like can I be anywhere basically and still kind of
Anywhere. I
make those
mean, I would
connections?
say that a lot of people who do destination weddings are like New York, LA, like Florida,
Right.
Palm Beach. I mean, maybe more true, like that's more of a quantity, but of course they come from everywhere, from Arizona, from Phoenix, from Tennessee, from just you name it, everywhere. So no, I think it's also us as usual. Our role is to give our clients, give our future bride and groom or our clients knowledge, right? That's what we're there for. They don't know how much things cost. They don't know, what the tempo should be. They don't know what the menu should be. They don't know how to seat the guests. We're there to give them knowledge. So why not give them maybe a little more knowledge? about maybe opening up their eyes. And who knows, maybe it's not Europe. Maybe just the destination might be, let's start out with St. Bart's. St. Bart's is France. I can tell you, it's so funny because I get there and I love it. It's like the same pharmacy, the same restaurants, all the cool places, all the hotels. Like the service is exactly like French. All the guys who are in the ski resorts in the Christmas, they're there during the summer. So maybe just start with St. Bart's. That's the first step. It's right here. It's not too far, and it's France. It's so you can really start getting the feeling of that destination.
So it's interesting, Alejandra, because I typically, when I think of destination wedding planning, I typically think of this notion that you position yourself as a destination wedding planner, that your social media, as you said, like that you're projecting that sort of image, and as a result, you are attracting the clientele that already know they want to do a destination wedding. What I'm hearing from you is that there's another meaningful set of potential destination wedding clients. And those are people that come in with a sort of open mind, and you present the option of having a wedding in Paris or wherever, and they're open to that. Is that something that you see? Like, how often is
I
that?
do. I do see it because sometimes they
Okay.
call me and they tell me, well, I want to have it in, I don't know, in this place. And then, but this setback and this setback. And I'm like, well, you know, how about have you thought of maybe doing it in Marrakesh? For example, like somebody wanted to do it in October. I'm just giving an example. Someone called me and they wanted to do a beautiful event in the south of France in October, and I'm like, that's wonderful, but in the south of France in October, it's chilly. You're going to be wearing a leather jacket, and when people aren't well, they're not going to have a good time. So
Right.
better until the 20th of September. But he's like, no, 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 the date has to be in October. And I'm like, well, you want to do something exotic. You want to do something where the weather's nice. Wow, Marrakesh is amazing. We can have a desert night, and then we can have a beautiful night in this, mille et nuit type of incredible place. And they're like, oh, I never thought of it, but is it great? And then you show them, I have it ready. You show them the
Yeah.
portfolio, and they're like, oh, so why not? I really feel that sometimes people just don't know exactly what they want. Remember, our role again is to give our clients what they didn't know they wanted. And in every way, it's in decor, in florals, in venues, in food. You know, Again, we do this for a living, so we've seen a lot of different menus, or we've seen a lot of different tempos and the way it can work. If you do the entree, the main pâte, or if you do the entree, the main pâte, you get them dancing. We're there to give them the knowledge. So why not give them the knowledge for the venues?
I want to ask about challenge and a benefit. And you already spoke to one really interesting benefit, this notion that most destination weddings, I mean, they're multi day, they're not kind of the one and done day, and that's just more time for the bonding and enjoyment of the experience. Can you tell me on the flip side? Because I have spoken to various destination wedding planners over the years, and I know that there is this romanticized almost like misconception that like, oh, I'm jet setting and I'm in Paris and it's all like lovely. Can you just tell me one unique challenge to planning destination weddings, just so everybody has eyes wide open, and then I will talk some more about the positive and the benefits. But
Okay, so the challenges. I don't think there's one. I think there's quite a few, but I'll give you the main. Let's give you the main challenges. So,
okay, okay,
the main challenges I would say is that every culture is a bit different. Like I love it because in France, they say, no, 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 it's not possible. And then, you work on it, you work on it, you work on it. And in the end, they say, okay, okay, let's do it. And then the Italians will say, no problema, non c'è problema. They say, of course, everything is possible. And then when you get there, they're like, what? You asked me for that? That's not possible. So I don't know which one's better. I don't know. I'm not sure. But, so there's the cultural aspects, which you need to, be aware of. And that's why I say again, when you have the partner, they tell you, they're like, hey, like, for example, I did my first event that I did in Venice, and I had no idea. But so we get this amazing, beautiful place, and it's a beautiful private home, and you can only arrive by boat, and all this is great. And then in the contract, it said, that they had the bridge, or the dock, the dock. And I was like, great, it's included. But little did I know on the day of, I'm like, but how am I going to supposed to hop off from the boat to this, like, dock? And they're like, oh no, because you need to add like a passerelle or something. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not included. Oh no, 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 that's not included. So,
Oh,
again,
wow.
a planner, she told me
Yeah.
about that. And she's like, watch out, have some, some extra right in your pocket just in case you need it for those last minutes. And I mean, I never would have done that because I never, like in the States, that would have never happened,
It's like you
so
have the car, but you got to pay extra to get the keys.
yeah, a bit like that, a bit like that. So, so again, that's having like I said, a consultant, a partner,
Yeah.
or maybe you start a little easier and you work with the hotel, which is not really my case, but I have to say, like, if it's going to be maybe your first or your second, the hotels are a huge resource. I'm a Belmont ambassador, and I work a lot with the hotels, and I mean they have incredible events teams, and they're very knowledgeable, and so they kind of help, they help you a bit more. But I guess the big challenge would be, these like cultural surprises, that the language barrier. In France, we you know the hotels, yes, they speak English, but my main forte is monuments. I work like in l'Opéra Garnier, or in the chateaus. So they speak English, but not that great. So
Right.
of course, now ChatGPT, it helps all our lives. Let's face it, for everything, and that's a big part. And I think it really helps that barrier. But things can really get misconstrued. So the language barrier might be a bit difficult, even though it's a little easier today. So you really need to repeat and reiterate and recap again, because people just understand things differently. Just like, for an example, a dumb example, but entree. Like in France, it's l'entrée et le plat principal. In here, the entree is the main plate in America. So I was like, no, 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 but that we can't do the entree. It's
Right.
little, it's
Right.
so silly. But
Right.
so I would say the language barrier. I would say that when you work in monuments, we have a lot of rules and regulations, and it's quite particular, and setup and teardown is very complicated. But it's so, like, it's worth it. Again, remember, it was that uncomfort zone. Remember, it's so
Right.
enriching, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
So that's a perfect segue. So tell me now, like we've talked openly, candidly about some of the challenges that are unique to destination weddings. That because eyes wide open. It's
The
already hard
logistics, the
planning an event. Yeah,
logistics, and
all of that is gonna. There,
like, you go to Lake Como and you ask for an Uber and it arrives 45 minutes later.
right.
So you're like, what? Like, wait a minute, this is Lake
Right.
Como. It's not like, it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere, right? You think Lake Como, they have 1,000 million weddings. Nope. Because again, they small, and they don't have, so all the taxis are coming from Milano, or, they have a little taxi service. So that in Lake Como, for all your guests, if they got to go to point A and point B, you better get a transportation service, even though it costs an arm and a leg, because it's not like in Paris. So, oh, the guy was late, just call him an Uber. That doesn't work. So it's those type of things that you just really need to talk, communicate, ask, get your partner, get the hotel partner, to really give you those insider things. Mm.
And so tell me, when you say I wouldn't have it any other way, it's so fulfilling and
Mhm.
enriching. Talk to me about that.
Well, okay, it's fulfilling and enriching because, first of all, every culture brings you something, and enriches you in a certain way. Number one. Number two, I would say that my teams themselves love to travel. I mean, who doesn't want to go? Yes, I mean, it's not all roses, let's face it, but I always try and take the team at least one day before and then one day after. I mean, if we can, I love to do that because, to go to a place, it's kind of frustrating to go to the most beautiful places on earth and then you don't get to enjoy them. I don't know. It's kind of like when we go to those beautiful conferences, right? Like Engage and all this stuff. And I'm like, and we're so busy. We just want to enjoy it. So I usually do that. So I do that with my teams. I take them one day before, one day after, and we enjoy it. We do something cultural. We go to the coolest restaurant, whatever that is, in order to enjoy it. So my teams are like, okay, so hey, we have a lot in Paris. When are we going to Italy? When are we going back to Italy? So I think it really motivates your teams, number
Yeah.
one. I think another, wonderful thing about traveling is that every single time it's just super different. Because when you tend to be in your playground, let's call it, like, say maybe my playground right now is Paris, your playground might be, New York, if you're a New York planner. It gets a little repetitive because there's not like 1,000 great venues. At our level, when you do like certain kind of events, there's not that many venues. We can count them maybe in, I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 10 venues if we're lucky, right? So isn't it great to like start from scratch, and even your design juices flow, like everything flows, because as you adapt to your ambiance. So let's say we're doing something in the Amalfi Coast, just think lemons, think, if I'm doing something in Barcelona, it's color, Frida Kahlo, So I think it really just really makes you grow creatively for sure.
I love that. That is really cool. And I guess, for so I just want people to be inspired, and for those that are already actively planning destination weddings, hopefully they're picking up some tips here. But also for those that aren't currently doing it, I just want people to be inspired, and not everybody's gonna start overnight planning destination weddings, but I think it's something that, like, maybe we open some minds here to this as a possibility, that no matter where you are right now in your business, this is something that you can get into if you want to. Does that
You know,
resonate with you?
I've met, and that's what, opened my eyes also, is meeting the right people, because you know how it is. It's like, for basically, if you're a planner, you know that, photographers reach out to you, or
Mhm.
makeup artists, or they reach out to you, but who do you end up calling? You end up calling the person that you met, that that you maybe had a laugh with, maybe you had a wine with, or and that's where, when you go to these incredible conferences, where you meet like really quality special people and you connect with them. I mean, I've had, like, literally, I met somebody from Greece, and she was amazing, and she organized a fam trip, and now I'm like all about Greece, because I realized it's, much less expensive than Paris and Italy, with incredible quality and the most incredible vendors. But I never would have known that if I didn't meet the right person. So I would encourage you, if you're into that, maybe that little seed was planted, to go to these conferences, because there's people from all around the world, especially the ones in Europe, because if you go to the American ones, maybe you get some Europeans, but it's more American, or in Canada. So maybe go to the European ones, and the Italy ones, the France ones, the, I don't know, London ones. And that could really, maybe open some doors, and give you a little bit more confidence on that end.
As a wedding planner, you know how important it is to create detailed wedding day timelines for your events. But creating your timelines can be a tedious and time-consuming job. Until now. Because Timeline Genius lets you create beautiful, detailed wedding day timelines with ease. And it keeps everything you need on the wedding day in one central place. Here's how it works. First, Timeline Genius saves all your clients, vendors, and venues in your Rolodex, so you don't lose time looking for their information. And when you're ready to create a new timeline, you simply enter the key information for your wedding. Click a button, and voila! Timeline Genius magically gives you a customized timeline for your event, where all the details are laid out and the times are calculated for you. From there, you can easily edit your timeline by adding or deleting items, inserting images, changing font styles, and customizing everything to your liking. You can also instantly shift the times for as many items as you want. And when it comes to your clients and vendors, Timeline Genius lets you give them the highest level of service. You can send them tailored timelines, showing only the items they're involved in. And you can collaborate by inviting them to a mobile-friendly, web-based version of the timeline. You can even set text message reminders to automatically go out on the wedding day. And once you've completed your perfect timeline, you can download it or email it out as a beautifully styled PDF. And that's Timeline Genius, a smart software that will help take your wedding planning to the next level. Start your free trial today.
I love that, Alejandra. And I could talk to you all day about destination wedding planners. I think and hope we've given some good knowledge and inspiration on that. And I do, with our remaining time here, there are a couple of other bases that we talked about covering in our pre interview. I am a student of entrepreneurship. I have been since I was young. I believe that success leaves clues. And I believe that if there's something you want to do and there's somebody that's done it, like, you can go to them and listen to their playbook and adapt and learn from that and apply it to your own life. And I know that if people go, right now to your website, I'm looking at it, as I speak, alejandrapoupel.com. It's gorgeous. I mean, there's all this beautiful work that you're doing. The imagery is just incredible. As you look back on your career, and just kind of think reflectively and introspectively about what have been the key ingredients to your success, because I think for all of us, there are things we do really right and there are mistakes that we make, right? And we all have our own unique superpowers. Like, when you look at your career path, what's the first thing that comes to your mind as being most responsible for your success?
Hmm. I think we are in a service business, and we can't forget it. Is we are in a service business, and what makes you go to one hotel to the other? It's usually because they remember your name, because you got an incredible service, because when you arrive, they remember that I don't know, you have your tea in this way and that in your way. So I would say in any business, I don't think it doesn't only apply to events. I think if you're in the service business, you really need to give that utmost excellent quality service. And that is what might differentiate you from anyone else. And that's what makes you really create relationships. And I think in every business, I would say that what is that one thing that kind of changed everything for me? It's like the relationships that I have, because, for example, when I partner and I do things in certain monuments, they don't do very many events, and they're quite complex, but I think that they trust that we're going to respect the 54 pages of rules, and everything has to be fireproof, and we have to have a technical coordinator checking everything, and we have to give a dossier to some files to the government. Anyway, there's a very long list of things that we need to do, but they will trust that we will do it and that we want to come back. And so again, it's a relationship. You have to think the long haul. You can't think like short term in anything that you do. So I would say that it was the relationships that have really been the foundation. Many of the venues are the ones that are, recommending me, or, creative partners are the ones recommending me, and we recommend each other. I recommend them, they recommend us. So those relationships are very important. And I think that's been a big secret, to the success, I would say also being very humble and introspecting every single time. I don't think you can ever get enough of that, because it's a live document. I think you really need to create a business plan. And it changes. It's a live document. The market changes, you grow. And so you kind of grow out of your business plan. So I would say to do a business plan every 2 years, to say, okay, what's the goal? Where do I want to go and how I want to get there? Sometimes that's changing your teams. I think being surrounded by the right people, I think that's a common theme that I say, but I just feel it's so true that, again, an example, if you want to do more, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, something that, I've done for me. I've realized that I really need to have someone in-house doing all my floor plans and doing all my, renderings and things like that. Because even though my event designers are knock your socks off amazing and they're excellent at what they do, sometimes having someone there, I get the idea. I want it now. I want it, it's more alive. So that for me, it works for my idea to be able to grow and do bigger productions. In order to do bigger productions, you really need someone in house who's creating these kind of, floor plans and 3Ds and all these things that if you want to do a huge production, you need. So, but again, that's because I had a vision. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to do a bigger production. So I need this. Just be very concrete, and be very introspective, I would say. And, I would also say quality is better than quantity. And that has served me very well, because you're only as good as your last event. You might have done great events, but then the last one's the one they're going to remember. It's crazy, but it's true. And, and a lot of people have told me that, and I think it's true. Your clients are in your next event. They're sitting there in the dinner table. So, get it right, because they could be your next prospective clients. And yeah, I think that quality is important in the sense that it's not, remember you said at the beginning something about you can be really, really busy, but not necessarily be super productive.
Right.
And that's it. It's not because you have 20 events that you're growing and that you're doing something really challenging and that you're doing something amazing. Maybe it's better to do two, and, maybe they'll be more expensive and, they'll hold you over or not, but it's taking you where you want to go. Like it's the long haul. It's like, where do you want to go? That's what's important when you make your choices, in my opinion.
So there's a lot there to unpack. So you talked about building relationships and taking the long view rather than the short view. What does that mean? Like, what are some practical sort of like examples where, like, if you had a short-term frame of mind, you would approach it one way, but the right way is to think on a longer term basis?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm just thinking like I'm thinking out loud. Like for example, there's been venues or chateaus who have come up to me and told me, "Oh, we want to try and create some kind of activity during the summer. A candlelight dinners or this and that. Can you maybe help us? Can you give me some advice? Because obviously you're a planner and I love what you did, and so I'll do that for them. I will do that for them. I will create them, some kind of theme, some kind of story, some kind of event, whatever that is. I'll give them addresses. I'll tell them you should go to this guy, you should do that, you should do this. But then again, the next time when they're thinking of, recommending to a client who comes and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a planner," I think they'll think of me because we created a relationship. And I think it's being generous is a great thing. Some people have this mentality of like, "Oh, no, you don't share, you don't say, you don't do." My
Mhm.
Instagram, it's kind of funny because I mean, I think it's a little too long. It's like, even like, okay, the muscle man, the no sé qué, the guy who, I don't know, provided something. I don't even know the water because some of these chateaus don't have water. So we have somebody who provides water basically. I put him in there because we got to give credit where credit's due. And so again, that generosity, it just comes at you 1,000%. It really does.
I love Oprah when she says what we put out comes back to us. She's like, it is law. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, that is so true. Like, it
So
may not
true.
happen immediately, but at some point in some way, we get back what we put out. And,
Mhm.
I'm also hearing from you, Alejandra, that building relationships is about putting in the energy to deliver that A plus experience and that A plus level of help and service to people, right? Like
It
it's
is.
in part you need to go out, you need to network, you need to meet people, but the other thing is showing up and delivering. Is that, I mean, can you speak to that just a little bit?
I mean, what is the most, I would say, like our most precious asset in life is our time. That's
Right.
why, that's why when as planners or, as organizers, we're basically selling our time. And I think that's why it's so valuable. And that's why I say, you really need to, you know, um, price yourself or your fee needs to be aligned with the quality of your time because that's how we I would say measure or gauge our fees. And it's super important because our time is the most precious thing we all have. We want to be with our kids, we want to be with our family. I mean, the famous balanced family life and and all that stuff. But so what we give to people, our time, our energy, our conversation, our help is everything, especially with clients. I mean, I know that our clients come back to us or our clients recommend us and they're our best ambassadors because they say, you really did, you didn't have to do this, like you went the extra mile. And it's not to say we don't do boundaries. I mean, I like, they can call me on a Saturday, that's not a problem, and I'll answer and I'll say, is it something that can wait till Monday, or do you need to reach me? Is it important or something? You give them that little nudge, from the beginning, very importantly. So I'm not saying that you don't have to have boundaries, but I do think that you just, whatever you do, you need to try every single avenue before you say no, like every single one, and call in every single favor, and explore every single idea, and call every single person before you say no. Not to say that sometimes a no is a no, and then if it's a no, then let's find another alternative. um so yeah, so I think it's all about the service, and it's the same with our couples, like our husbands or wives. I mean, if we give them our love, and when I mean love and I mean service, who isn't happy? A wonderful husband who you say, "Oh, I made you a surprise, and I made you, I don't know, your favorite dinner, or I'm taking you out to your favorite place, or my husband smokes cigars, so hey, I got you three incredible cigars. I saw them in the store." Again, it's a love, it's a service, it's a time. Who isn't going to be happy with that? It's an exchange.
I love that, and I so agree with you, Alejandra. I think I often reference a quote by Ben Franklin. He said, "If you love life, then don't squander time because that's the stuff that life is made of." I mean, at the end of the day,
Ooh,
that's
that's a
all our
good one.
lives are,
That's
right?
a
Is
good one.
some indefinite, we don't know how much, but finite amount of time. And once a second or minute or day, whatever unit of time passes, we never get it back. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't buy it. So I really, I love that perspective. You
Mhm.
also said something that I find interesting, Alejandra, which you said that having a business plan and having that plan be a living, breathing, organic
Yes.
document that you're updating, that's become A little bit of a lost art, I think. I think, 20, 30 years ago, there was a time when it was just standard
Mm.
practice. If you're starting a business, I remember my first business, we had this lengthy, dozens of pages long, business plan. Can you tell me what role does having a business plan play for you, and why would you advise other people to take the time to create one?
Well, a business plan I usually do with my business manager, but if you don't have a business manager, then, there's many entities who help you do a plan because, I know that ChatGPT can do everything for us. And I know that, we can look online and say, how do you make a business plan? But you know
Yeah,
what, guys? Everybody's good at their business. It's kind of like, you're not a planner. You can't organize a party like I can. It's the same. I can't organize a business plan like a business manager can. They have a different vision. And I would really recommend, investing in that because I think that's important. If you're lucky enough to have a business manager, great, that's wonderful. But if you don't, you can have a business manager just for the business plan. That's a, you can just hire out, and why not outsource that? So what? Okay, again, my husband's a businessman, so it's very structured. I'm actually not a very structured person, but he is, and he is very right. The thing is that first of all, where are you allocating your money? Because if all is well and you did hopefully very well, then you have this money. Where are you allocating it? Like, are you allocating it on social media? Are you allocating it on Google AdWords? Are you allocating it on going to conferences? Are you allocate? So anyway, you basically need to know what your team is costing you, what you're making, if there's any adjustments that need to be made. I think and again, some years you're going to make more than others. So on the years that you make more, that's when you really need the business plan, because that's when you really start planning on what to do in the layers of what you can do with this extra money that you have. And when you don't, then you need to figure out really what your concrete goals are. And for example, my one of my concrete goals was a couple of years ago, was I'm going to open up an office in Italy. And then I said, well, then I changed that. And then because if you don't put it down on paper, sometimes writing something and just having the goal and saying, okay, what do I need to do this? That means I have to be there a certain amount of time. Well, I can't do that right now, so that's not going to work. So I think writing things down on paper, seeing your goals black and white, and seeing what you need to do, actionable steps, like really actionable steps on how to get them done, just really helps you grow. So I think it's important.
that makes a lot of sense, Alejandra. And I think that, I would even say for people that may feel daunted, like maybe they don't have somebody to kind of take this role on for
It's
them,
normal.
it's still worth, at the very least, just documenting, like, and it doesn't have to be a huge production. It's great if you
No.
can spend the time, but just to be intentional about your strategic direction, right? What are some of the goals that you have, like the word that you just used? Because I feel like otherwise, and you can tell me if you see this differently, especially in this profession, it would be very easy to look up and just be in a reactionary mode where you're just thinking about the event and you're running, but you're not really taking that step back to see, where do I want to run? What's the right direction and strategy, you know?
No, but it's so true. Like I'm the culprit. We're all the culprit. Like we get in the drrrr and the running, 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 running.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
like I usually have, like for example, like January, February, which are a little bit calmer, which is where when I found you, Timeline Genius, because I was like, okay, I have some time now. Oof, I can breathe. And when you can breathe and you're not running, 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 I was like, okay, I need to find something that's perfect for my timeline. I need it to be on the phone. I need it to be adaptable. I need it to be, and I remember looking and looking and looking and looking and looking. And I remember, of course, my like 22-year-old or 23-year-old, gal who works for me. And that's why I hire these youngings, because shoop, they find these great things. She found me, for example, Timeline Genius. And so that's when you realize that when you have a little time and you take a little step back, how much money and how much time it can be saved when you're running crazy. I mean, we all have a little bit of time where it goes a little slower. Hopefully, I hope for you, because it's nice to have that little bit of backwards time. And I mean, when you see a lot of the great leaders, these incredible people, I think time and time again, we repeatedly see that they say we take some time out with no
Yeah.
phone, no digital, with a bunch of books,
Yep.
and we
So
just reflect. And I think making a business plan is a bit that it's not only making a business plan, it's kind of like reflecting on what's working, what's not working, being a little honest with yourself, and and seeing, hey, well, this isn't working, so I got to stop doing this, and hey, this is working really well, maybe I should do some more. Or hey, maybe this team member might be like the best at their job, but you know what, the ambiance is just not right, so maybe they need to go, even though it's super uncomfortable because you got to start all over. I don't know what that is, it's different for everyone. But if you don't take that, like, in French we say recul. It's like you kind of walk back a little bit and like you're looking from outside in.
Mhm.
I think it's really hard to grow. So,
I love that and agree wholeheartedly. And it is a challenge to do. I also love and would be remiss in my duties if I didn't delve a little more into the Timeline Genius thing, because you
oh,
are a Timeline Genius user. And I,
fan.
and I,
I am.
yeah, for those that don't know, I usually just kind of give a quick sort of plug. There's still people that, listen to the podcast that may not have heard of Timeline Genius. It's a platform that makes it really easy for you to create, um, edit, collaborate on, and execute beautiful, totally customized timelines and now checklists as well for your weddings. And for me, um, my mission in life professionally, I like to say, is solving problems for people with technology. And
Mm.
back in 2013, I was just talking to, on my wife's recommendation, I started talking to wedding planners and asking the simple question, what's the most tedious part of your job? And I heard very emotionally people say, I love this job, Eddie, but timelines can be, they're very important and it can take a lot of time because I want to put all this detail in. And this is, and it's not just me and my team, like we work really hard to just continually improve this platform. So yeah, check out timelinegs.com. If you haven't, start a free trial, watch the video on the homepage. And Alejandra, one thing, again, you having the incredible experience and perspective that you do, I would just invite you as a planner, because I can talk all day from the standpoint of a serial tech entrepreneur and the founder of the company, but I can never share directly through the eyes of an accomplished wedding planner what it's like. So I would invite you, if you don't mind, just candidly sharing what
Yeah.
your experience is like with
Okay.
timeline.
So the reason I love timeline just for, I mean, there's various things, but first of all, because what we do, right, is we orchestrate. We're like head orchestrators,
Yes.
with many different moving parts. And and I can have from a range from 200 people to 900 people having lunch and dinner, meaning that on my events, which is like the staff. So how do you get all those people the right communication at the right time? And things change, and even like in an event, like one of the events that we had, Biden was there, the president was there, and so since he was there, he was closing down all the roads, and so all the roads were closed. So everything was basically on for the 3 days straight, like everything was closed, and either an hour and a half late, the guests, because they just couldn't make it. The roads were closed. So anyway, long story short, it was so easy. We just, okay, change, okay, everybody, timeline, and everybody had it like on the spot, at the moment, live. So we all have our phones, we all have our iPads. How many times do you print out like a million of those things, and tell me how many people like actually brought it with them or actually look at them, or they don't get lost? It's like, oh, I'm like, sweetie, I gave it to you, so you have to print it again. So now I just like, here, just share. So I
Yeah.
would say that it's just very alive. It's, again, things change. We're in the business of things changing every 5 minutes, right? So having an alive document is great. And I think I mentioned to you in our pre, I was saying, the thing that really I love, is just so practical, is the fact that you can change a time so easily. Because
Yeah.
when you have to go back, because we used to do it like everyone else with an Excel, right? But then you'd have to go back and change every single thing. In this case, for example, when sunset changes, because for example, okay, well, finally we're not doing it September 12th, we're doing it September 20th. Well, I can tell you there's almost 45 minutes different in sunset. And our lives are all about doing it in the sunset, right? Because you want to get those great photos. All my photographers out there are probably listening, but yeah. So there we go. So it's so easy. You go back 30, up 40, 20, 30. Chirp, you press the button, it's done. And then we collaborate. So again, it's just a very easy way to collaborate with everyone, alive and practical and flexible. And one thing that is true, I send you little emails and I tell you, hey, could you do this? Because you know what? This would be really great. And I actually get an answer back. And you're like, oh yeah, we're going to work on that. That's such a good idea. Let's do it. Voilà. That's probably why I like it. a lot.
Well, I appreciate that, Alejandra. And yeah, you're right. I do. And it's because, I started this company without knowing even what a timeline was, which is crazy
Ah,
now because I feel like I have a PhD in timelines because it's all I've thought about for the last 11 years. But like, at least in the workflows for creating timelines, I've just seen so much. But I will always listen to, people like you because I mean, we were just talking about the international time formatting. Like,
mhm.
absolutely, I'm taking that back to the team, bumping that up the priority chain on our product roadmap. But yeah, I'm just so grateful and honored to be able to work with and to serve people like you that are just
Oh,
doing the work of getting uncomfortable, right? To go like to build the career that you've built in the company and to start doing the events that you're doing. It really just makes me feel very fulfilled. One last question. You actually listened to our podcast, and I can't believe how quickly the time has gone here. You probably know there's one question I ask every guest, and it is
oh.
if you could give one piece of advice, Alejandra, based on your unique path in life, all of your experiences, your rich experiences in business, and your personal experience. If you could give one piece of advice to help people as much as possible build a successful wedding planning business, what would your piece of advice be?
That's a good one. It's God, it's a really good one. The piece of advice to grow the best wedding planning business possible. You know, I think it has to be your own. Like everybody has their, their superpower. And whatever that is it should be reflected in your company, in the sense that I mean, I feel like, me, it's maybe that I'm very energetic and I'm very positive and, and I really try and make that shine through, my company and what it is, and everything I do and, the people I choose to surround myself with and everything that I do is kind of like, it has that as a core. Just keep going back to, why are you doing this? And also I think the most important thing is that sometimes the client, as wonderful as you thought they were at the beginning, are just not what you thought, and it's really hard to to take it in. And I've been very lucky and I've had really, really great clients, and I've become like friends and family with most of them afterwards. And I miss them when we don't WhatsApp anymore and stuff like that. But sometimes you just have the client who you don't click with. And I think it's important to just take a step back and say, not everybody can love me. It's the honest truth. It's like I'm not made for everybody, and it's okay. It's okay that if, as long as you do your best and you're true to who you are, and your attitude, your mentality, and shine through in your company and what you're doing, doesn't really matter, in the long run.
I love that, Alejandra. And I do, I really believe what you're saying too. And I think one trap that we fall into, it's funny. Have you heard of Ray Dalio by chance? He wrote a book called Principles. So he
No.
was managing Bridgewater's founded this hugely successful hedge fund. And he said, that's one of his core sort of ingredients to success as well, is that like we kind of feel like we have to do everything great, but nobody does. So like know who you are, lean into your true self, and lean into the things that you are really good at. Which your energy definitely, I commented on that before, and it does. It jumps out through the screen, and it always has every time we've connected. Um, if people, Alejandra, want to get in touch with you, for example, if they're going to take us up on this advice of finding collaborators for doing
Yeah.
international events or anything else, how can people reach out and connect with you?
So for sure, you can go into alejandrapoupel.com. And of course, we have our contact and our email, and we'll get back to you quite quickly. Or Instagram, Alejandra Poupel Events. You can DM us. And if you're European, you'll probably WhatsApp me. And my WhatsApp number's in my website too. So yeah, or they can reach out to you because everybody loves you, Eddie, and So, or they can reach out to you, and you can just send them my number.
I definitely will. Well, Alejandra, I
It's been
yeah,
fun.
just want to thank you on behalf of our Timeline Genius community and on behalf of all of our Wedding Industry Insider podcast listeners. and
Absolutely.
personally,
And fun.
just for taking time to do this. And for me, also, just incredibly grateful, indescribably grateful for you and the other people like you that use our service. You guys fuel me to do what I do every day. So,
Oh, I
really, really
love it. I
grateful.
love it. Yeah, you're the perfect example of, introspective, being very positive, being very humble, learning every time. Wow, you're a perfect example. You practice what you preach.
I try. Life's too short to go around being negative, and it doesn't help us usually. Not that I don't have my days and occasions,
We
but
all do. I mean, we all do. Some days you're just like, oh my God, I need to have a huge pizza and watch Netflix, and that happens too.
I think
But
that's
yeah,
like one of the key things in life that like at some point I started just kind of opening up to is that like no matter what's happening, we don't have to go negative. It could be you've got an event planned and it's raining. It could be somebody's driving like a madman and cutting you off, or somebody's yelling at you, like whatever it is. Like we have the power to choose our response and to hopefully choose one that's positive. So
yeah.
anyway,
Take a breath. Meditation. I've been meditating now for a little while now. And it's incredible what 3 breaths can do. Like, just breathe in and breathe out 3 times and wow, you see things differently. Yeah.
100%.
Anyway, thank you so
All
much
right.
for taking the
Thank
time. I really enjoyed it. It went by so fast. It's crazy. Take care.